Good afternoon, everybody. Matt Burns going to kick us off with this comment here. Looks like Sousa's had that suit since he graduated high school. Funny thing about that is I had probably about 20 minutes notice to throw that suit on. And it was funny because my wife didn't really see me pack it up. It just kind of was like on the corner. She's like, "Are you wearing a suit?" And I was like, "Yeah, no time to explain. I got to go." As if I'm some sort of superhero. But it was funny because I just threw it on in the corner and she was like, "You chose to wear the suit that you like officiated a wedding in, but then if you look, the bottom half is like Lululemon pants that are this light gray, and then I'm just wearing my Vans." I wasn't totally expecting to be in any photos. I was actually just last minute trip out there to film the whole entire event with Dave. Was the purpose of it. We'll talk a little bit about that in today's show. We're also going to talk about Beyond Meat. I have an article here from our friends over at brokenscience.org. This was an older article by Russell Berger, but I'm not going to go through the whole thing in its entirety, but I just wanted to point out this first like page of the article that he gets into here, and you guys could go read the rest of it for yourselves. We're also going to talk about standards and who sets them for you. Standards and who sets them for you. And then we'll talk a little bit about the official CrossFit day and what I was doing on Capitol Hill with one Dave Castro, John Levy, Jordan, as well as Bill Saley. Shit, did I get that right? I literally just listened to his name before the show so I could get his last name right because it's spelled like Saley, but I'm pretty sure it's Saley. Either way, he's going to be on the show, not my show, but Sevon's show. And you guys will get to hear from him and talk about that a little bit more in depth. That probably won't be for a while because our schedule is nuts right now, but that'll be cool. So we'll get into a couple of those topics today. And you guys will be stoked to know that I have my notes. I'm all organized. I had a little bit of time before this one. It wasn't some crazy like blunder and then I almost called this my studio, but it's definitely just an office. Oh, snap. My first official donation here. Froggy Will, Sousa, what do I wear for an informal CrossFit coach interview at an affiliate? I need to know. Love these shows, by the way. Just be yourself. Don't wear anything like weird. Just, I don't know, just go in there and be yourself. I rarely would judge anybody on I'm kind of laughing to myself right now because I'm thinking about if I would judge somebody on an interview like based off how they're dressed as a CrossFit coach. I would say like this is gonna sound weird. Don't come like too decked out in CrossFit shit. Like if you look like a quintessential like CrossFit like game character where you have like the backpack with like your fucking 10 belts strapped to it and all your grips hanging off the side and you have your like Beyond branded. I just went with Beyond branded like a noble rad tier row, like the whole deal. I would probably be like, "Oh gosh, is this guy like a caricature of like a CrossFitter or is he a CrossFit coach?" Um, so that would be my only advice. And here's the other thing too, when you go in for an interview, don't forget like you should also be interviewing the person. This isn't part of the notes today. We're going off on a side tangent here because Froggy Will donated €5, pounds, euros to my show, my first donation ever. So we're going to spend a little time with this interview question. I would not, remember, you're interviewing them too, right? So go through, they'll ask you some questions, and then you should ask them, like, hey, what's an example of a really successful coach that's here? What does ascension look like? Like, meaning, like, can I continue to level up in this job? What does that look like for you? What specifically do you guys think that the classroom experience right now could be improved upon, or you guys are working on, or something like that? And then ask too if they, what type of protocols they have in place as to assimilate you into their coaching. Are they going to have you shadow somebody? Are they going to shadow you? Like, it's definitely fair for you to interview and ask them just as many questions as it is that they ask you. I also think understanding like, hey, what's the culture like of the gym? Like, how often are you guys meeting? Or do you guys do coach evaluations? Just some general questions so you get to know the lay of the land of like what the expectation is at their gym, as well as like what they expect of you. So there should be like a back and forth conversation. Obviously, don't be like rude about it or like push them into a defensive place. Talk about it naturally as if you were deciding, hey, I'm going to donate a bunch of my time and my energy and really invest myself into this community. And I just want to make sure that I'm the right fit for you and you're the right fit for me. And I definitely would appreciate that. Like if somebody really came in and started asking some like intelligent questions in the sense of like, hey, where's this gym going? What's the culture of the gym? Where do I best fit in? Like all that type of stuff. That would like fire me up, like interviewing somebody. I'd be like, okay, cool. And then of course go with my only flaw is that I just care too much. Right? Oh, I hit the zoom button. My screen just totally zoomed like all the way in here. Okay. So that's what I would do on your interview as a CrossFit coach. And I'm curious as to how that goes. So keep me informed on that. Let me know how it went. We'll talk about it on the next show. Dylan Doe, get naked, establish dominance, Froggy. Also an option. That may be part of their culture. I don't know. Feel it out though. You might not want to come in hot with that. Instead of wearing a dress belt, hold your pants up with a two-pood belt. Hired immediately. Definitely whatever you do, don't talk about like competitive goals. I mean, okay, this is going to be different for every gym. So me personally, like if you start talking about like your competitive goals or like your workout times and shit, like I would immediately be like, "Oh fuck, okay. I don't need to know anything about that. That's not going to help my members of the gym become better at CrossFit, you being competitive." Um Matt Schindledecker, what's up, man? Thank you. I appreciate all you guys being here. 57 of you. That's amazing. Um, Especially now there's like, I think like Hiller went live like just randomly to talk with John Young about his open workout. And I think Bill and Chase are doing the thing over at Get With the Programming, analyzing some open workouts. So the fact that you guys have those other options where you could talk about people exercising, but you're here with me talking about beyond the meat and standards in which we hold. I appreciate that. Appreciate all you guys hanging out. Sleeky really got the crowd going by calling in last time. We got to hear her voice a little bit, huh? Show your long-term potential. That isn't just a stepping stone to something better that comes along. Yeah, that's right. And if it is too, if it is like maybe that's something that you talk to them about and be open and upfront about that. So I would appreciate somebody that was like, hey, I'm doing this right now. I'm really passionate about it, yada, yada, yada. But this isn't my ultimate goal or I have another job. So to Sleeky's point, like definitely show your long-term potential. And if there's other stuff there that might take up your time or other interests, be upfront about that right away. My main goal is that all the coaches just communicate and over communicate to me as far as what their needs are, frustrations, how we could better support them. Because if it's not a two-way street back and forth and we're not having constant conversation about stuff, then like there's no way I could lend a hand to help or anything else. So yeah, definitely. Just T, Hiller's on. See ya. Dang it. I knew there was gonna be one. Fine. Hold on, I could probably start using these on my show. Fine, Jess. See you later. She said, just kidding. Just kidding. Just finished coaching the noon. Sweet, Odd. That's awesome. Hope it went well for you. What were your 2 points of performance on your workout today? You guys remember that from the last show. All right, so who's in charge here? Oftentimes, especially, and I'm using a couple examples. I won't get into specific details because you guys are just too crafty. Sometimes we say shit on the internet, and like sometimes you guys are way off base, and then sometimes you guys are like scarily accurate as to your investigations to what's going on. But oftentimes in life, especially if you're a coach or really if you're an affiliate owner, is that people are going to come and go, and sometimes those relationships don't end the best way. You find out somebody said something to you or about you behind your back, or um, whatever, maybe you just didn't really like the way that they were treated, and there's another opportunity for you to either work with this poor person or you'll be seeing them, and then the question becomes if like they already kind of did you wrong, and I'm using air quotes here as a wrong. We could all define the different degrees of that. How are you going to treat them next? And I'm not talking about extreme examples like they punched you or like slapped your wife or something crazy. I'm just talking about general things. And one of the examples that I used here is if you're walking into a store or a coffee shop or something, and you decide that you're going to hold the door open for somebody, and you kind of look them and they don't even give you the time of day. Maybe they just kind of like look up and like give you a head nod, or maybe they don't even look up at all and they just walk right through the door. The question that I have to you is, how do you react to that? Because you could either be like, man, fuck that guy. What the hell? I just held that open and blah, 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 blah. He didn't even acknowledge me. She didn't even acknowledge me. They didn't even say thank you. The question that I have for you is, who did you actually hold that door open for? Were you doing it because you decided that you wanted to be that person that's just going to be a contributor that's going to hold the door open, irregardless of how they chose to treat you? Because the way that I view it is that if you hold the door open for somebody and they walk right by with no thank you, and then you get upset by that, you weren't doing that action strictly because that's your standard and that's the type of person you are. So that's what you're going to do and uphold. You did that in expecting something. And once you start expecting something and it doesn't get reciprocated, then it's kind of unfair because they didn't actually know the deal either. You could have dropped the door in their face and it wouldn't have mattered. Or you could just say, regardless of how this person acts, this is the manner in which I choose to conduct myself in. Now, over being an affiliate owner for like 10 years, I always hear little whispers and different shit of other gyms saying, oh, well, Match Gym isn't competitive, or they just focus on families, or whatever the fucking case may be. Oh, they don't have open gym and I can't slam my barbell while they're trying to teach a class of 20 people. So they go to the gym up the street or the next thing over, whatever. And usually some members will come back and like, oh my gosh, have you heard what they're saying about you? So again, that's a different example of the standard. Are you going to hold the standard of, you know what? They could do their thing. That member, that coach wasn't a right fit for me in my gym. And that's the end of it. Or are you now going to start getting yourself into the down there in the depths of the gossip and the shit talking and the back and forth because you only heard somebody else saying something about you? And I want that to simmer a little bit because if you have a long-term goal, which obviously you guys know I beat that ad nauseum on this show, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. But you could start to ask yourself, hey, is it part of my long-term goal to get in this tit for tat back and forth and now start gossiping about this gym or talking shit as well? No, that's probably not part of your long-term goal. Was it your standard that you said you're not going to gossip about other coaches? You're going to hold the door open regardless of how somebody acts. There's going to be some sort of friction, but the next interaction you have with them, you're just going to continue to be you and kill them with kindness. Or now you're going to change your attitude and the way you act towards them because of what they did to you. And I always like thinking about that because I've had conversations, a lot of which, like, sometimes Sevon will call me and he'll be like, hey, did you hear so and so did this? Did you hear blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, should we do X, Y, and Z? Should we talk back about it? And I'm like, well, what's the goal here? What's our optimal outcome? And then we start to process that together. And he's like, yeah, you're right. At the end of the day, like, it kind of doesn't matter because we're not like going down that path or questioning somebody to where they have to become defensive about their position or slinging mud back and forth doesn't help our overall long-term outcome. And so if you have somebody to like process that with, or you just have that internal conversation within your head, you'd be surprised how much crap you could just discard and choose that it's just not a problem. Because A, you hold yourself to a different and higher standard, or B, you just decided that, hey, it wasn't worth going into that conversation. And this happens with coaches, other gym owners, all that type of stuff. Um, and I just think that once you guys decide your standard, how you want to conduct yourself and how you're going to behave, that standard shouldn't change based off how other people treat you. And we'll go through a couple comments. I don't have the phone turned on this time. Someone's like out running errands and like the call forwarding thing. It just gets a little messy. But if you guys have opinions on it, I will go through these topics. I'll pull some up from the comments here, and we'll kind of get into the discussion about it. But I think the way that you choose to act and conduct yourself in society should not be changed because somebody else decided to treat or do something differently. So just something to kind of think about as you guys go on the day today. Sleeky, easier said than done sometimes. 100% agree. And believe me when I say I am not perfect at this at all. So please, like, as I kind of talk about these things, these are just things that I either on the top of my mind or something happened. And I just kind of was like, oh, this is a cool topic of discussion. Or maybe even been working on this with like my coaches, or Sevon and I have had a couple conversations about something. And I just thought it'd be cool to give it a 30,000 foot view from you guys. So please don't take it as like I conduct myself in any perfect manner. I make mistakes all the time. Believe me. Matt Burns, dude, they could eat a dick. Sevon. And sometimes that's just the appropriate answer and move on. That's okay. That's also okay to say. If that makes you, and sometimes I do that too. You hear about it, I'm like, oh, fuck those guys. You hear about it, whatever. And then that's it. Then we move on. We don't need to make it any more public or like get them back and forth, which is pretty funny. Paulina, hey, what's up? Oh, sweet photo. Dang. I heard on a podcast earlier that standards are held internally, but expectations are external. I thought that was cool. Wow, that summed it up perfectly. That's exactly right. Like you get to choose your standards and how you're going to conduct yourself, and whether those standards are met with like equal expectations of other people. It shouldn't matter about how you conduct yourself. All right. So I have an interesting story for you guys. At least I hope you find it interesting. 2 years ago, when I was at Wadapalooza, might have been the first year. Silly detail that doesn't matter. I was at Wadapalooza. I was there the day before, and I saw this guy getting kind of hosted around with somebody who looked very much so like they worked for the hotel, and they were kind of like saying like, "Oh, we have this area here, we have this area over here," and I could tell that that he was looking at the hotel for a potential venue. And so they sat down to kind of like talk about some stuff inside the lounge area of like the main hotel where all the athletes stay, that's just like directly across from the venue. So I was sitting there most likely just waiting for my cue to go out and film some more stuff and be live. And as the person and then we're talking about using the hotel, the different venues, the different portions of it that they could use for their event, I saw on his sweatshirt, it said, sleep is for suckers. And so I looked him up real quickly on Instagram, stalking people in public. And I saw that he had a podcast called Sleep is for Suckers. And it had a pretty decent following. I mean, on Instagram, I think he had like maybe just under 200,000 followers at that time. And his podcast was probably right around 100 or 1,000 or so subscribers on YouTube. And so I just kind of took note of it. Anyways, I had to run back up to the room and like grab some stuff. And as I'm coming down the elevator, they had at some point left and were circling around, and they went to go get on the elevator. And it was me, the guy who was hosting around the hotel, the hotel worker, and I think like one other person randomly in the elevator. And I was like, hey, and I forget the guy's name actually here even. But I just thought it was, and I'm going to use this clip here. Let me find his name. His name is David. And I was like, hey, David, are you from the Sleep is for Suckers podcast? And he's like, I am. I'm like, oh, that's awesome, man. Good to meet you. Are you touring this hotel for the event? And he's like, yeah. And the guy who was like showing him around the hotel kind of like looked at me and looked back at him and was like, oh, and like walked off. And I was like, yes, good deed done for the day. Because like if you're getting showed around by a dude from the hotel and you're trying to like convince him that this is the right spot for your venue, and you have, followers, you have an audience, and somebody randomly at the hotel says that, it kind of boosts you up a little bit. And I think anytime that I could put some good juju out there for other people trying to make it, especially in the podcast media space, I just figured that would be cool if that happened to me. And so I wanted to pay it forward to him. And last night I saw this clip of him on the Instagrams with this piece here. I think I might, let me refresh this. Let's hope this works on the screen here. Refresh it. It's going to come right back up. Boom. Okay. The clip in and of itself is a little bit long, but I'm not going to listen to the whole thing, but I think there's just like a good takeaway from what he's saying on this. And it kind of related to the story a little bit about how I, if you want to call it, met this dude, I guess. Shook his hand in the elevator with that story. But this clip popped up and I was like, oh shit, this is kind of cool. But I'm interested, especially like the parents out there, I'm interested in your guys' opinion on this. So we'll let our boy David here from Sleep is for Suckers, a social proof podcast, speak now.
And you got to stop being so selfish, because you are selfish. Mm-hmm. You're enjoying your life and your life provides for you, but nobody else. This is one of the things I really struggle with, man. I thought like $100,000 a year was like the most selfish goal ever, because that afforded me a really good life.
Yeah.
But I still couldn't really do for my mom like that. I never got a chance to send my dad a bag.
Mm.
And I regret that. He passed away. My mom and dad passed away, but
Oh.
I never got a chance to pay my father back for
Mhm.
all that he's done
Yeah.
for me. Our whole life together, it was me taking.
Mhm.
Take. Never gave anything.
Mhm.
The last few years of my mom's life, I was able to, like, we turned the tide. It was like give, because I didn't want to take anymore.
Right.
So I was able to give. But my dad, he passed while I was working at the Cheesecake Factory.
Mm.
And I never got a chance to really, really pursue paying him back.
Mhm.
It's interesting how you have siblings.
And you guys can listen to the rest of that clip. Kenneth translating here, a bag equals a large sum of money. Yes, that's exactly what he was talking about. Thank you. No, Matt Burns. I was thinking weed. No, he meant money in that scenario. And I'm curious because like that's something that I often think about, not necessarily just like giving my parents money or anything like that. Like they're fine. They don't really need anything from me. Not like we come from money at all, but they're taken care of. And I'm curious as to like how parents look at that, because I saw that clip and I've always thought about like, not in sense of like paying it back, but to be somebody, to be that type of person that's going to work really fucking hard and is going to, hopefully make some money, hopefully find some success. And the question is like, what are you hoping to do with it? And if you're able to, especially those that are close around you, if you're able to like reach back out or lend a hand, or, in the case of what he's saying, like pay it back to some in your parents, like if they're whatever in some hardship or something like that. I think that that's a really great end goal. Sometimes we get so caught up in like wanting money, and myself included in this, trying to like build these businesses and do all this and hoping that one day it's like, oh, I've exceeded $1 million a year in income and yay. And it's like, ultimately I always have to put myself in check and be like, well, what's the goal with that? Like what exactly is the end goal? Like, and I play this game of, if somebody showed up, and you guys have probably heard me talk about this before. If somebody showed up and said, "Hey, I have this magic wand and we're going to make all your financial issues disappear." How much money exactly do you need to make the life that you dream of, like the good life, air quotes around that? And then what would you do with it exactly? And it's funny because once people really start to drill down and think about that, like, well, what does the good life mean to me? Am I flying? Does that mean if I first class? If I private? The materialistic things. Could I have designer clothes? If you're into that, clearly I'm not. I could give a shit less. You guys saw my suit on this thumbnail. um, so the question then becomes is like, well, what does the good life look like to you? Can you write that all out? It's all a math equation at the end of the day. What would that monthly burn? What would your monthly expenses look like? And really, what would you do with the money? And I think once we all start to crack that nut and like really focus in on it, it's interesting. It's interesting. We'll leave it at that. It's just interesting as when people really start to sit down and like think about it. And I just thought that perspective was cool because he's talking directly about paying back your parents. And now getting into a couple of these like comments here. Uh Augustus, my parents are partial beneficiaries of my life insurance policy in case I pass away before I get to pay the chance to pay them back. Okay, so that's another, that's one way of doing it. Sleeky, I would never expect my kids to quote unquote pay me back. It has been an absolute pleasure taking care of them in all ways. Magdalene, I believe a bag includes weed in cash. Oh, Magdalene again. Parents simply want your time, keeping them a priority in your life. That's That's really good. I'm fortunate enough that my parents actually live super close to the gym. They live like, 2 or 3 minutes away from the gym. And both of them, including my dad now, which it's been a little bit of time to get him in there, but he's finally in there, and they come and they'll most likely both of them will, well, my mom worked out at the 8 a.m. class today. My dad will most likely come in and work out the 3 p.m. class today. And so for me, that was like hugely important. My aunt also goes to the gym. My sister-in-law, Grace's sister, goes to the gym. Grace's mom, my mother-in-law, she goes to the gym. And my cousin goes to the gym, and it's really cool to be able to have a place that, in my opinion, adds a lot of value to their life and to their health. And so that was something that was awesome outside of, paying for anything else, like having a place where they could have community and health. Like, I didn't really think of the gym in that way of being that something for them, but it's really cool that now that I have that opportunity. Kenneth the lap, that's the goal, right? Impact your children so much that they want to take care of you at some point if they can. Exactly. Exactly. Sleeky, I don't have the ability to pay my parents back, but I hope I've made them proud. I think it's like I'll save that story for another time. I got another story with that, but we'll save that for another time because that's gonna go way off on a tangent. That might hit you guys in the feels. I know it will for me if I go into that right now. So we won't. We'll save that for another show. Dildo. The fucking names, you guys. Daily Stoicism with Souza. New segment. I like that. I'm pretty much really into the Stoicism stuff. So I just wanted to share that clip with you guys because I thought it was a cool perspective. And as you could tell, I wrapped it in this kind of like, hey, what's it all mean for you anyways? Because sometimes we get so caught up in the rat race of like having to pay these bills or make the thing or go to the next ascension or whatever the case may be. And we never actually sit down and deeply think like, why are we doing these things? And for a period of time, we have a family friend, a couple of them that are really well off. And Grace and I used to watch their dogs. It was a great gig. You get to hang out in these big mansions and just like chill with their dogs and get paid to do it. It was amazing. But we would walk the dogs around and we would play the game of like, okay, which house would you get? And we start, picking pieces. Oh, I like this or I like that. And we're walking around these neighborhoods. And at some point she was like, well, you only want a really big house so you could show off to your friends. And I was like, kind of thought about that. And I was like, well, she's not wrong. I mean, a part of me, of course, is like if you run all these stuff and build this business and then you have your friends over for the party and they show up and you got like the fucking round driveway. Like it's not even a regular driveway. You're so rich it's like a half circle, like maybe a fountain or something in the middle. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, look, he's made it." But at the end of the day, when I really thought about it, I was like, "No, you know what I think it is? It's the fact that as the family grows and other things, like we're all kind of spread out. My brother's in North Carolina and like other people are other places. And it would be cool to have the house that was big enough to host everybody for the holidays. And when I really started to dig down to it, I was like, honestly, that's what would be cool about the big house is that it's like, fuck you guys, it's at my house because I got the biggest house and I'll buy all the food. Now, what are you going to say? Oh, we can't afford to fly out there. I'll fly you out here too. Right. Then you get to become like that person for your family, like that central hub. And so that was kind of when she like forced me to drill down on it a little bit. That was the ultimate goal. Of course, you want to show off a little bit. Who doesn't? Who doesn't? I'd be completely lying if I didn't say that wasn't the case. But I would hope that majority of it has more to do with the central gathering of all of our family members and making it a place where they could all come without having any argument or at least any financial constraint behind that. At least any financial constraint. Dildo, I haven't done my due diligence to find out why. So apologies if I missed it, Souza, but why were we on the class? Oh, the California House / Senate floor with TDC. Cliff notes are fine. We're gonna go into that. We'll go into that in a segment in just a minute here. I found this piece. There's nothing really much about this, but you guys have all seen the old school P videos with everybody like doing like dips and like actually looking like they're working out for physical education. Hey, go figure. And I saw this clip of JFK here talking about that, but I don't know. Most people have seen this portion of it, so I just thought it was kind of funny. I was going to share it here with you guys. So this is what was said prior to going into or talking about those PEs with like the rigorous exercise and stuff.
There's nothing, I think, more unfortunate than to have soft, chubby, fat-looking children. I hope that all of you will join and everybody in the United States to make sure that our children participate fully in a vigorous and adventurous life, which is possible for them in this very rich country of ours.
This footage is from one of the 4,000 U.S. high schools that followed La Sierra's physical education program
multiple times. But I like that first. I like the way he first did that line because he said like the, fat, chubby little children. And it's almost robbing them of a adventurous life. And I thought that was funny because it definitely is limiting. And if you have like if you're really big, and especially as a child, that's tough because obviously you can't keep up. Also, too, you're gonna be outcast and made fun of by other children. And a large portion of children that are obese or that look like that come from the lifestyle and eating habits of their parents. And it's totally within your control. Now, again, I always wander into the parenting realm all the time, even though I don't have kids. But and I get it's hard. And they always say, like, oh, my kid doesn't eat this, or I have to have all this, this shit foods in the house because that's what the kids eat and stuff like that. And I wonder, I'm like, who's in charge? Who's in charge here? Last I checked, your kid doesn't have a fucking bank account and then waltz on down to Safeway and buy all the crap foods. And of course, they're going to choose that over real food because it's engineered that way. It's got sugars, it's got salts, it's made to be addictive. So without passing too much judgment, because again, I don't have any kids, so it is what it is. But I just thought that's interesting because so much of it is within your control as a parent, and I hope that you guys exercise that right, and hopefully you have a standard, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, and you hold to it regardless of what external forces are coming down. Because something tells me if you just let the kid go, that eventually that they would eat. If you took away all the Doritos and the goldfish and the lollipops and the crap and the foods that aren't real foods, and you just let them eat like real food, they would probably not go hungry, and they would probably start eating the food you put in front of them and not the crap. So, Judy Reed, it's hard, but it's not impossible. People just give up and take the easy way. Yeah, for sure. And again, that's why I'm saying, like, I tread very carefully in these waters because, all this could come back to bite me in the ass once I have kids and they're like on fucking goldfish or whatever the hell. But I would try my best to not do that. And I'm pretty sure Grace is more of a hard ass about that stuff than I am. So they would have her to deal with. Ken Talat, parents are very adverse to just telling their kids no these days. Yeah. Yeah. Rosie View Photography. I was raised on meat and potatoes and raw milk. And you're strong. Your picture shows it there. No big deal. Real food. Real freaking food, people. Real freaking food. We're gonna switch gears a little bit here, and I'm gonna go back to the the general theme of who's in charge here of today's show. And I found this clip. This was in San Francisco. We have a bunch of protesters here. Tens of thousands march for Palestine in San Francisco. Now, I'm going to share this piece here. I'm not going to veer into lending an opinion on the whole Palestine, Gaza, Israel situation. I don't think I have anything to offer much on this subject. But I find it interesting as we see all these people, right? All these people. Music in case I get in trouble for the music. All of them there. They shut down the streets of San Francisco to join the call for the National Day of Action in support of Gaza. It was a global day of action where millions of people protested around the world. The thing that I look at when I see this is I just think there's so many issues that are happening in the United States right now that we should be looking and very concerned about. We should be looking into them. We should be concerned about them. And if there is tens of thousands of people on the streets to deal with the border crisis, deal with the mental illness that is causing the homeless in the streets, to deal with the fact that Congress's spending is completely out of control, to deal with the fact that so much of American taxpayer dollars is just bleeding out of the country. Unfathomable amounts of money. And it's like we're just more concerned with other people than we are our own issues. And it's interesting because I'm going to bring that back to the individual here, which is we kind of operate that way too. Like sometimes we'll sit here and we'll point at this person or point at this person and like we'll talk about all of their issues and stuff like that. And all of that energy could be focused on us and what we could do in terms of making ourselves better, right? Oh, that light got kind of weird and washed out, right? Switch that there. And of course, once I saw that thing, I went on this like trend of finding more examples of that, right? And this is another one here. And again, I'm using this as like context. Like I haven't, of course, like not 100% of this is like verified, but I just think the spirit of it is what I want to focus on. I got one more clip to illustrate, actually 2 more clips to illustrate this point. When we have this here.
165 billion we gave to Ukraine. We could have built 6 border walls to stop illegal immigrants from pouring across our southern border. Could have fixed Flint's water system 215 times over.
Easily.
I like this one. Could have given every homeless vet $2 million.
Holy shit.
Could have given $50 million to every family impacted by the Maui wildfires.
They got $700 each. They think it would take $20 billion to end homelessness in America. $20 billion. We've sent 100 and how much?
165 billion.
So we could have ended homelessness 8 times over in America. It's outrageous.
With the 100.
So, and again, I don't know if like 20 billion would solve homelessness because it might put them into houses, but it may not solve the mental health issue and the drug addiction problem that is actually the core of the issue there. But I just think like to put stuff into perspective, it's like all this money is flooding out. And again, I'm not here to offer an opinion on the Ukraine and Russia situation and how that may or may not affect the US or NATO or anything like that. I don't feel educated enough on those subjects to lend anything worth we're saying here. But I just think that there's just a certain degree of like, we really have to focus on setting our house in perfect order first, to borrow a line from Jordan Peterson, before we cast judgment or even try to lend a hand to somebody else. I think if we start to really try to drill down and focus on our problems here and what we could do to improve those situations, that would be the biggest effort that we could make, rather than just sending money overseas to all these proxy wars and different things that most Americans don't understand, but yet we'll get out in the streets and march about. It's interesting. 12 daily doses. The problem is homelessness. Homeless people choose to be homeless. Yeah, I don't disagree. And I think like homelessness is like, it's the symptom that we see. It's the byproduct of the mental health crisis. It's the byproduct of the fentanyl crisis that's killing so many people. I mean, fuck, 2 weekends ago, my parents had to go out to South Lake Tahoe because a family friend's daughter had passed away due to fentanyl. And she wasn't a drug addict. And I just can't help but think like so much of our efforts are manipulated big time by corporate media, and also wasted in the sense of like we're just spinning our wheels in the dirt here. We're not really solving any of our own problems. And then this last one here. This is the breakdown of NATO defense spending and the $1.3 trillion that go into it. Check that bad boy out. Bam. $860 billion to NATO defense spending. And that was in 2023, so last year. The next closest person to us is Germany at $68.1 billion. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about that. And by the way, like, I know you guys, this crowd is a little bit different. Like you're pretty keen on all this stuff, but the government has no money. Zero. The government has our tax dollars, and the government has generations' future tax dollars. That is it. And when they print it, when they print money, that's actually more of a tax on us. Because as you guys see, as money prints, there's more dollars in circulation. The price of all of our things that we consume, our foods, our gas, our housing, everything, all of that goes up, and the purchasing power of our dollar continues to fall. So when people are like so ignorant to think like, well, I could just print more money, that's also a tax on us. There's just no way around it. The government has no fucking money. Please note that. I always forget to turn on like the local recordings, and then I'm like, damn it, because local recording just records me and not the screen stuff as well, which I could use to clip into other things, and I forgot again. There's no point to that. I just thought you guys should know. And this is just what I want to say is like the power of corporate media here, the power of the loss of history, and the entitlement of our youth. And I know that when they clip these men on the street stuff, they find the most like ridiculous ones to post up. So we know that. But I just think the fact that this statement, that someone would even come up with this statement, is just absolutely insane to me.
Worse, Pearl Harbor or the death of George Floyd?
Is Pearl Harbor the one with the teas? Like where they pour the tea in the harbor?
That's the Boston Tea Party.
I'd say like George Floyd was worse, but only I think in a good way because it started like a bigger movement.
So that movement was bad. It was worse.
Worse but better. It was horrible that it had to happen, but it got people talking and brought awareness to things.
What was worse?
It got people talking and brought awareness to things. What the fuck? Whoops, wrong button. What the fuck? There we go. Get the record scratch going. It's crazy. That is crazy. An attack on Pearl Harbor, which took so many lives, compared to the fabricated narrative around what happened in Minneapolis with George Floyd, and the billions of dollars that came at a loss for that, as small businesses and livelihoods were completely destroyed off of this fucking ridiculous narrative that was spun up by the corporate media. Like, I think that officers should all be held accountable for their actions. They should be held to a really high standard because they are the ones in control of the law. But I also think that we shouldn't be spinning these things so crazy that it results in people burning down complete cities based off of evidence that isn't all the way established at all. Like, there's still so much that is coming out about even the George Floyd thing right there. And I didn't want to make it into like a George Floyd thing. I just thought it was just absolutely crazy in the fact of like that you would even compare the two in the slightest, and that somebody could drum up the fact that like it started a conversation. And so that's why it was worse, but better. Holy shit. Crazy. Crazy. Fucking TikTok generation. I was going to dive in a little bit about the TikTok stuff. I tried to get some more notes and stuff together with that, just so I could give you guys a little more comprehensive thing on like the bill that they're trying to pass to ban TikTok. But my take by and large on it is I'm this might sound weird, but I'm actually against the government banning TikTok, because I think that if you pay close attention to some of those bills, and again, I hadn't looked into it completely, but it looks like once it all passes, that it basically gives government the right to ban any social media app that they deem threatening. So, yeah. And that is something to that's something to pay attention to, because here's the other thing, right? People are like, oh, but China's stealing all of our, data and all of our information. China makes all our prescription drugs. China makes all of our iPhones. Like, where does that road end, right? Like, can we first hold them accountable for what happened in 2020? The whole debacle there? No, we don't really care about that. But then we're going to manipulate this information. And by the way, this is mostly coming from the Republicans. And I know that I try to be as like centered as I can with this. And when these Republicans like continuously, why is my camera getting so washed out with this? And they're continuously like beating down this drum of like, we need to ban TikTok. It's letting China through our border. It's like, fuck you. What are you talking about? What about all the other stuff that they're in control of? Like, let's start with that. And why are we specifically focused on controlling the apps? Well, that's because if this ushers in and you could start to ban apps and what have you, then you could just start to do it with all of them. And by the way, Google and fucking Facebook or Meta, whatever, they all own everything and all the data anyways. So it's just, it's just something that we just have to be careful of, because sometimes, like, if we divide too much and we're like, I'm on this team and I'm on this team, and we don't actually really pay attention to what's happening, we're just kind of serving the same system that really isn't for us at all. And so just pay close attention to it. We'll talk a little bit about what's happening with the TikTok thing in another show, when I could kind of like present some more things to kind of talk about this with you guys. But I just wanted to just touch on that point real quick. 12 daily doses. Trayvon Martin was definitely worse than Floyd. Yeah, and here's the shitty part about those things. Is like, when you actually have some terrible act and like there was an injustice, it gets swept under the rug with all the bullshit ones that the corporate media tries to do. And it's like, yeah, is TikTok bad? 12 daily doses. Is TikTok bad? Is it all? I mean, is all social media bad? It's that you answer that question with like, I don't know. It depends. It depends on how you use it. I feel that all of it's a tool. And so it just depends on how you use the tool. And if it's not taught as a tool, but it's taught as a necessity, which is what we kind of see happening with some of these younger generations, then it definitely takes on a whole different light of its own. And I would say that in that case, it could be a very bad thing. But if it's taught correctly on how to use the tool, the power of it, and the consequences of it, then yeah, it could definitely be a good thing. It could definitely be a good thing. Okay. Broken Science segment on Beyond Meat. Hold on, we'll get some of these other. Matt Burns, the CCP is using it for psyop warfare. They control all our prescription drugs, manufacturing. Nobody held them accountable for what happened in Wuhan. I don't know. There's a couple places that we could start, rather than just giving government control of apps that it can or cannot ban in the country. And I think that holding on to the freedom that we have there, in terms of not letting the government in through that door, so they could start banning or choosing what they deem as bad or harmful, and taking away our rights to be able to use those things, is far more dangerous than the potential psyops of TikTok. And also, too, as I was looking into it, I heard that a lot of the server data is actually held through Oracle's cloud and based in Texas. So you guys can fact check me on that, but just a little tidbit there. Beyond Science by Russell Berger. This is coming from the brokenscience.org article. This was a little bit of an older one. It was published, I think, like in December on the website, and he's talking about something that was on November 30th. JAMA Network open published cardiometabolic effects in omnivore versus vegan diets in identical twins. The study has a lot of things going for it: a prestigious research team from Stanford Medical School, a growing popularity of vegan diets, and a novelty of identical twins. This is exactly the kind of study journalists pay attention to, and they did. Here's an example of just a few stories that this study generated. Is eating vegan actually better for your heart health? Studies say yes. Identical twins study shows vegan diets helping the heart. Stanford twins study exhibits vegan diet's rapid heart benefits. Vegan diet can improve heart health in just 8 weeks, study reveals. Vegan diet improves heart health in a matter of weeks. For some, these headlines might be enough to throw out the red meat and start buying tofu. But for those who read the study for themselves, might notice something that is not one of these articles. No, excuse me. For those who read the study for themselves, might notice something that is not one of these articles mentions. The corresponding author, Christopher Gardner, received payments from the vegan company Beyond Meat. It would be a mistake to assume that the scientist's work is corrupt by corporate interests merely because they gave him money. After all, Gardner could have offered them some sort of nutritional advice that helped Beyond Meat develop its product. Or perhaps Gardner is a cyclist and Beyond Meat pays him to race in a jersey covered in images of meatless sausages. We don't know. But it would also be a mistake to dismiss the possibility that Gardner's science is for sale. After all, Beyond Meat paid Gardner for something. Could it be that they paid for his help in crafting a narrative that vegan diets are good for health? The rest of the article goes on to discuss it. You guys should go check it out for yourselves at brokenscience.org. All the articles that Russell Berger writes are awesome. And on top of that, he'll be on the show this Thursday as well, too. So there was just a bunch of more statements in it, but the point that he made just right in that opening page there, which was like, he listed 5 different articles that cited this study that was put together by Christopher Gardner here. And then when they looked into it, they realized that he was paid by Beyond Meat, the company. And then it's funny because they don't actually write exactly what he was paid for. So that's why as Russell went through it, he was like, so maybe he got paid for nutritional advice, maybe he's sponsored by them, or maybe they just paid him to falsify the science to help his use his study to be able to push a narrative that everybody should stop eating red meat, which is absolutely hilarious. Not like, ha ha, funny, just like, holy fuck, we're screwed funny. You know what I mean? Oh my gosh. And that's just like, I mean, there's a laundry list of these things that we could look into where it's like, oh, so-and-so here put out this whole entire study, and then it turned out that they didn't find any injuries in CrossFit, and it was paid for by this whole entire group here. And there was a couple, there was another good point in this article where he said sponsorship bias is a well-known problem in health science. Nearly 60 years ago, the Sugar Association quietly paid Harvard scientists to downplay the link between sugar consumption and heart disease and shift the blame to saturated fat. You guys remember that? And then we had this whole no-fat diet thing that got pushed, all based off of this studies coming out of Harvard that the Sugar Association basically paid for. The research they produced doved healthy policy for decades. The influence peddling in the health sciences continues to today. Coca-Cola, the world's largest manufacturer of sugary beverages, paid millions to steer research away from negative health effects of sugar. Check out the rest of the article for yourself. You guys could read through it there, but there's many examples of that happening where essentially these big companies come in, they silently pay off a bunch of these scientists, or different academia people to publish these papers. So then that way, those papers then all get cited by all these corporate media outlets and then talk about all this and stuff that the narrative is being pushed by the scientists, and it all comes back to being paid for by the companies who have benefits it most. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Judy Reed, vegans usually look so unhappy. Jake Chapman, CrossFit, sausages. Yep. Sausages. Yeah, so you guys could go check that out. The stuff that Russell Berger is doing over there at brokenscience.org and Emily Kaplan and stuff is really great work. It's super important that we have an entity like Broken Science, obviously with Greg's involvement in that too, like looking into these things, publishing these things. And my hope here is that when I talk about them on the show is to essentially just give a little bit of curiosity and drive you guys to the website so we could continue to show support to Broken Science and also bring more light to these issues. And I think it was the first episode I did with the Dana-Farber Cancer Research Institute and kind of the scientific misconduct problems that they're running into, problems that they created. That guy, Peter Judo, and I shared some of his like YouTube channel. I'm going to continue to watch his stuff too, because this guy breaks it down great. And I could see him becoming a contributor to the Broken Science efforts as well too. So maybe we can make the connection there and get him involved as well. I think the more people that we have in the room discussing these issues, the more light that we bring to it, and the more that people are educated on it, they could use their own discernment when they're reading these studies to ask the appropriate questions to know if it's just complete bought and paid for advertisement or if it's actually a study with some merit that we should be paying attention to. Spoiler alert, they're mostly just bought and paid for advertisements. Okay. Last subject on the agenda for today is the CrossFit Day. Spending some time on Capitol Hill with our good friend of the show, Mr. Dave Castro. So basically, I'll bring this up here. You guys could check this out. I don't know if I'll get dinged for using it here. But this was yesterday. This is part of the recording from we were at here. I'll play much of it as I can.
By Assemblymember Saley, the clerk will read.
House Resolution 79 by Assemblymember Saley relative to CrossFit.
You are recognized, Mr. Saley. Thank you.
So that Bill Saley there, now that I get his last name right finally, he's an avid CrossFitter. He lives in Riverside, California. He CrossFits out there. He also belongs to a gym locally in Sacramento, as he is sitting at that seat 4 days out of the week, Monday through Thursday. Really good dude. It was cool to be able to get to know him, get to meet him a little bit. We also got a tour. The picture that you see on the thumbnail there is like myself, Dave, Bill, John, and Jordan, who were all part of the event yesterday. And we got our names up on this little the Jumbotron over there behind Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you're unfamiliar with what a burpee is, a push jerk, or a snatch, then you're probably not familiar with the subject of today's resolution. If you have been fortunate or unfortunate enough to have been acquainted with the aforementioned exercises, then you know we are talking about CrossFit.
So it's pretty cool how we kind of like laid that out there. You guys could go ahead and watch this whole thing for yourself. Let's see where he ended it here on.
Overload, John Lavelle, also CrossFit Games creator and former Navy SEAL, Dave Castro, and the owner, director of training at the Sacramento CrossFit Communitas, Dr. Jordan Eldridge. And we also have Matt Souza of CrossFit Livermore.
Hey, check me out. Waving in the balcony. I actually didn't know this shot was in there. I didn't mean to bring this up, but it worked out perfectly. So that was us. We got a little recognition. We were the representation for CrossFit that was there.
Between these gentlemen, they have decades of experience competing at the top levels of CrossFit competition as athletes, and in Dave's case, as the director of CrossFit Games from 2007 until 2021. He is currently.
It's also hilarious because I have like the complete wrong lens to film from that far away on the camera. But hey, you know, I figured we could rip this live stream to kind of put together some of the.
Currently the leader of the CrossFit sport team. It's an honor to have the gentleman, Councilman LaVille,
That's
Dave,
crazy. I didn't realize
Jordan,
we were on for that
and Matt
long.
here with me as we recognize the positive impacts of CrossFit on thousands of Californians.
I look like I'm
Please
frozen.
join me in welcoming them to this Capitol.
Like, look at that steady hand on the camera right there. And then he's like, stand the fuck up, you weirdos. And then we stood up. So I'll link it in the show notes. You guys could go and check that out and watch, like, if you want to listen to his whole spiel. But it was pretty cool. He represented CrossFit really well. And then he actually said in there too, he's like, and for some of my colleagues here, like I strongly suggest you guys go check out and take a CrossFit class. You might enjoy it and blah, blah, blah. So it was pretty awesome to be able to be there and to be a part of that. So thank you, Dave, for allowing me to be a part of that. Thank you, John, and thank you, Jordan, for pushing that through. And thank you, Assemblyman Bill Saley, for pushing that. That was pretty awesome. The official CrossFit Day, as the bill passed, is March 6th, 3/6. And here's kind of the interesting spin. Okay. So no good deed. You got to ask yourself, like, who would be against like having the CrossFit Day, right? Like you got to ask yourself, like, who's against like people getting healthy and taking personal responsibility for their health and getting involved with a community of like-minded people, contributors to society as we believe ourselves to be. Well, fear not. Politico.com has definitely put a spin on this bad boy, which is just great to see the way that this pulled out here. So I'm going to bring up this. Bring up this article here. By the way, too, I'm pretty sure we got it on film, or at least I did, or I'll try to find it from the main live stream, where somebody like booed him as they were passing the bill. And it was like, everybody for say, you know, aye, everybody for say nay. And like a bunch of people said aye. Then he was like in against, and someone was like, boo. I think it was a chick. Judy Reed should be 316 for Sevi's birthday. Can anybody guess why Dave chose the date 3/6? Can anybody guess? There's definitely a reason behind it. If you know Dave, he's like, he works in mysterious ways, and there's definitely a reason for those two numbers. So figure that out. Okay, so this article here, it says hit the floor. It starts with, this is kind of weird. And it talks about Assemblyman Asaley here, who described himself as an avid CrossFitter who wants to support small business owners who are part of the community. Now, Assembly member Luis Rivas, like a handful of lawmakers, took pause before pressing their green button, looking around with confusion at colleagues and noting that the resolution effectively promotes a specific company. That's kind of funny. Oh, Sleeky. Nailed it. That is it exactly. C is the third letter. F is the sixth letter, standing for CrossFit. Well done. Letters in the alphabet. Well done. And so it was funny because then she went on to say, like, we don't do that. Saley, after the floor session, said he wasn't aware of any single rule against promoting a specific business. He also called CrossFit a movement, not just a company, and noted that there are free workouts people can access online. If I was benefiting from this business in any way, I'd say it's an issue, but since I'm not, I don't see it as an issue, said Laura Corday. So it was interesting. I got that conversation on film, which was pretty funny because as we were standing out there, like before they took us down and gave us a little tour of the assembly room floor, Bill called over. He was like, hey, I think her official title was like House Recorder or Mrs. Recorder or something. He was like, hey, come over here real quick. You were the one that said like CrossFit was just a for-profit business. And then she's like, yeah, isn't it? And then Dave was like, well, and then it started like going through all the free literature that was released, the fact that like anybody could do it at home for free, cited the journal, cited several nonprofits that they have, cited its global impact on health and everything else. And then she kind of just stood there and was like, oh, okay. And then just walked away, which I then, of course, they write this article about it, which I just thought was hilarious as they like put that spin. And that was it. That was all they said about it, was just that little bit right there, which I just thought it was funny. Oh, here comes Heidi to stir the pot. Does anyone else find it interesting that Hiller directed everyone to go watch Get With the Programming just now instead of this podcast? In all fairness, Hiller probably didn't know that I was live. Like, it's kind of funny because I view, obviously we like, I talk about CrossFit stuff on here, but my take is like very different. As opposed to like, I feel like the programming shows and like they're very like, those are like, it's all about CrossFit. And I try to kind of weave in and out of CrossFit a little bit here, because as I slowly develop my show and my, hour on this channel or whatever, I don't want it to be all about CrossFit. Obviously, that's what we're all kind of gathered here, and I want to talk about it a little bit, especially like the coaching, the affiliate owner side of it. But I definitely don't want it to just be a CrossFit show. And Hiller probably doesn't even know that I'm on right now live. At least that's what I'm going to tell myself to make myself feel better. Dan Guerrero, no, I think Hiller hates you, Sousa. Could be, guys. I don't know. We'll have to ask him. I'll shoot him a text after this, and I'll clip Heidi's comment there, and we'll see. Heidi, I heard he doesn't like Sousa. Could be. I doubt it, but could be. Also, doesn't the show only go for an hour normally? Yeah, usually. We're actually done right now. It's just over the hour. But I had a little bit more time today, and I had my shit together. So that was good. We love you, Sousa. Thank you. I appreciate it. The real Kevin, no one likes Sousa. Well, that's fair. Wait till you guys get to know me better, then you really won't like me. Travis, what's up, dude? Yo. Okay, so that pretty much sums up all the fun stuff I had planned for today. As always, I hope you guys got something out of it. Hope it left you maybe a little bit better than you arrived, and maybe we all have some stuff to ponder. So thank you guys so much for joining in. I seriously, I can't tell you how much I appreciate all you guys. Like, I think 106, it's pretty great. And everybody else who listens to the show after the fact too. Thank you guys. Seriously, thank you. Especially to like I'd made this joke earlier, like coming from 2017 and doing a podcast every single week, sometimes twice a week, all the way up till 2021 when I got involved with Sevon, and seeing that number hold the steady 0 or flash a 1 and then back to a 0 all those years. It's always humbling, and I appreciate everybody who spends the hour of their day listening to my voice, and hopefully you guys got something out of it. All righty, you guys be good to each other out there. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.